Visible, sir.
Yeah. So we'll start the session. So this is session 8 of International Marketing for Logistics and Supply Chain Management. So there has been a session left over in between, which will be compensated in the upcoming slots. With respect to the session 7, we discussed about the module 4. And that module 4, the first level of understanding lies in strategy and other implications of marketing, which is overseas management. And with respect to the current slot, we are into the phase of evaluating the scenario which is existing in order to allocate the resources very well planned, optimum, and other resources has to be analyzed from the vendor perspective. And those perspective analysis, which is fabricated in order to make sure that the logistics and supply chain planning are done in a stringent manner. And in order to ensure the correctness for international trading, we need a specialized certification. And in order to enhance the function, we are in the situation to analyze the critical categories like payment related documentation, inspection audit reports, and exercisable goods. Let me come one after the other. The critical categories, which are all including inspection documents, which are all maximum times we are fabricating the data and we are giving the data as inspected report, but it should not be in that scenario. The certificate related to the international trade must be proximately done, and we need to follow APT formally, that is accuracy, proximity, and time calculation. So this APT analysis, what we do it in our international trading must enhance the faster smoothing of movements between one source to other destination. That is how we plan the transportation of goods across different intra or inter borders, and analyzing the flow of information, and which is also inclusive in trade calculations of understanding the margin towards overseas mapping. So to be very precise, the documents which are all connected to the critical category in this scenario varies from one zone to the other zone, and that one zone is nothing but analyzing it from the vendor perception. The next zone might be analyzing the problem from manufacturer's zone, and the third zone will be analyzing the same problem from competitor's zone. So when we analyze the same problem in three-dimensional zones, it is clear and proximized to the core of reducing the paperwork. So when there is a transparency of data and there is a transparency of whatever the analysis being done in the previous iteration, if it is crystal clear, we need not worry about the international trade which is going to happen in the upcoming cycles. And the foremost understanding what we need to take it up from international foreign traders, operational methodology. So when I talk about operations, I can include method study. I can take into consideration of work study, how much time I'm going to take, what is my elapsed time, what is my idle time, and what are all the required time to be completed in order to enhance the fastest sequence has to be notified. So, for inculcating n number of jobs in stipulated number of missions, for example, if I have only two or three missions in my working day, it has to be notified from my perspective, stating that it is highly connected in order to ensure the layout of the facility, which is operationally analyzed, financially executed, trend setting, economic pattern. So, this trend setting economic pattern, I repeat it again, this trend setting economic pattern is going to be the standard rubric for foreign trade assessments. So when I take it as a rubric, that is a measuring category, The methodologies, what and all we implement in today's concepts is highly emphasizing in all the segments of calculating the missions in the foremost category and foremost building capabilities. So these are all the patterns and policies in which we are enhancing the data redundancy across different pattern. So those pattern, those category, those segmental behavior, everything is dealing in a real-time perspective of taking into the real-time understanding, manipulating the data, and making to the core of competency analysis, and then we are finalizing the policy is to be implemented in the forum. So before releasing or launching any policy to the people who are all that is a client, we take utmost care, utmost categorization, and utmost analysis from the reviews collected, and then we are annotating the results based on questionnaires, data, which is primary, secondary, and tertiary, and then we come into a conclusion that this policy is going to be the trend setting policy. So across divisions, across categorizations, we are enhancing all the patterns and philosophies are behind some competition. And those competitions are also highlightable for calculating the risk and calculating the pattern study. So once after knowing the risk and pattern study, it is easy for us to know the trend setting analysis. So these are all the segments in which we are going to take a manipulated study or a survey in which we are going to understand the phenomenon through the help of various tools what we have it today. So this frame of infograph is insisting us to consider the navigational study from policy to procedure with the help of frameworks, compliances, direction, documentation, audit, all put together is P2P. That is what we term it like business to business, business to consumer. This is going to be a policy to procedure. And that policy to procedure is going to be on trade trend setting. So we keep it in mind like T square, trade to trend. So when trade becomes the trend, the terms what and all we discuss right from module 1 till module 3 will have a consolidated effect on the compositional analysis which is happening between terminologies of exports, imports, policy, payments, inspections, and finally operational methodologies. It is as simple like if I stick on with an operational methodology, it is giving me a constraint that this is going to be the wholesome scenario of taking a real-time understanding between the competitors. So when I try to understand the competitor analysis, it is giving me clarity and giving me a confidence, stating that this is going to be the rule maker or the trendsetter of the next future era that is about getting into a 5-year plan or 10-year plan based on the promise what we make. So it is as simple as when I go for a real-time understanding of this pattern, please ensure that this is going to be the ruler of manipulating any survey or any category. I repeat it again. When I tend to be the rule maker or the rule setter of any criterion, please ensure that this navigation is highly impossible in order to ensure the maximum returns which is to be planned in a long lasting survey. So when I go for a long lasting survey, I repeat it again. This long lasting survey, what we discussed in the previous slide, is not going to be on this particular segment of understanding from the foreign trade to the local trade. So in this third point, operational methodology is what? T to T, that is T square, trade to trend. How this trade to trend is going to get analyzed in the differential perspective and who are all the influencers of those trade to trend. So this trade to trend is again going to be the nurturing pattern in this trade composition and direction. That is what mentioned in the third point here also. In the current frame also, we talk about the trade to trend compositional analysis and direction. And also in the previous slide, we discuss about the compositional segment or the compositional policies and trends which are all to be highlighted whenever there is a peak position in business strategies. So these two frames has to be taken to the maximum criterion for evaluating the patterns and philosophies of differentiated factors. So those are pulled by the people and process purpose all together mapped in a calculate the efficiency rate and the efficiency rate top notch segmented. So those segments we learn it today in this philosophy manipulate survey behind every analysis is cross-culturally taken. Those cross-cultural analysis, what we take it from the real-time scenario, is again be the start for lot of case manipulated study. So it is not that easy for us to highlight the policies and principles because these philosophies and these principles are mostly. Sir, is my voice audible now? Fine, fine. So with respect to the operational execution, mostly the compliances are relevant and reluctant to policies to procedures, and mostly it is being inculcated in the recent trends of evolving policy. I repeat, the recent trends of evolving policy are mostly preferable, mostly connectable in order to ensure the fullest patterns and fullest operational excellences. So this operational excellences is again going to be the tone of any segmental data. So now my question is, how do you primarily focus on documentation of international trading? So what could be, these are all the straight questions. Since for basic understanding, the questions have been straightly given to you. So may I get the options from your side? The option A talks about verification and compliances. Option B talks about the backup of data. Option C talks about ownership, and the D option talks about excise duty calculation. So may I get options from your side in chat box? Please give your options in chat box. What is the primary purpose of documents related to inspection in international trading? Post your options in chat box. So this option A. So this question is reluctant to audit inspection. The term inspection refers towards verification of compliance of goods and contract related standards. So it is as easy for me to relate all. It is better for me to provide a detailed explanation to my competitor stating that this is going to be the related information which is mostly preferable in differential sharing strategy. So I repeat, this question what we have posted talks about evaluation of backup of information also, but primarily we talk about verification. So coming to the next frame, so when I talk about the regulatory frameworks and governing principles, it is damn easy for me to analyze the destination of exports. And when it is getting into implementation, highlighting these partners and making the partners to sit and make a survey is not easy. That particular time, I may go for a joint venture, or I may go for a joint analysis, becoming a IJV, that is international joint venture, what we discussed in session 4, international joint venture. So that international joint venture may go for national engagement and to reach the global market. This philosophy might be the supporting philosophy for me to take care of real-time understandings of principles. So those principles which are all to be noted down with the maximum number of patterns, we may take a understanding from foreign analysis, domestic analysis, origin, and taking the differential pattern across division. So kindly make sure that this engagement, what we discuss or what we annotate, is also getting into the real-time scopus of actions, and those actions which are all to be highlighted in differential pattern, in differential manipulation survey. So this differential manipulation survey focus about the verification. That is what discussed in the previous question. The verification is all about understanding the philosophy from international foreign trade. That is what highlighted here. This highlighting trading partners mostly represents how to ensure the correctness pattern in the differential calculus. This is the mathematical identification of foreign trade. Across foreign trade, what are all the practices we are going to implement and how it is going to state the future of understanding into the next level practices. So this practices is again going to be the most important philosophy of engaging the global business standard. This global business standard is also located with respect to the overall pattern of manipulating the details in differential factors and differential calculus. So these calculus, which are all highlighted, which are all maximum taken into consideration, which is to be done in a real-time scenario in manipulating the details across divisions. That is what highlighted with an engaged practices across global markets. So those global markets which are all engaged in a national strategy or a geographical destination does not reveal the maximum partners who are all engaged in the regulatory framework always focus on governance, not on other destination. I repeat, this frame is talking about governance, whereas the social and economic focusability is not present in this particular situation. So this frame talks about only the governance of executed foreign trade analysis. So once after noting the maximum number of governance taken into consideration, we are planning for the future scope of business action that is again getting into composition. And that composition is also highlightable in India's foreign trade with respect to the examinations of the specific commodity, making the right standard of India's foreign trade is not even a competition for foreign trade. So maximum foreign people who are all engaged in the foreign trade portfolio, what is the compatibility between India's trade portfolio and foreign trade portfolio is what the examinations of specific commodity, the maximum commodity of bulk of India's trade portfolio. So I repeat, the differential India's trade portfolio, maximum number of India's trade portfolio is how much number of times compatible with the India's trade portfolio. So these kind of trade portfolio data driven approaches are currently the target factors of compositional examination. I repeat, these sort of comparative analysis between serviceability, related action, market segmentation, or international segmentation, these kind of categories are what today's target is all about. So when I focus on today's target, I strongly recommend those people getting in some activity related in market study, market research. So compositional analysis of market survey and market research is highlighted to the maximum of comparison between two segmental portfolio. Secondarily, we are coming to balances. So, when I talk on balances, the composition of India's foreign trade, both comparison finally coming out as a win-win situation, what we call it as win-win situation between India's and foreign trade portfolio. The balance is what we have. It's not that easy for us to enhance the volume, but in some area we are especially focusable on some divisional changes and divisional attractions. There is some bias, and that bias is because of bulk of information what we acquire from foreign and local trades, and there might be reliable data and there might be irrelevant data. So even though we are having so many relevant and irrelevant data across, we are in a situation to avoid specific commodities or not giving towards trade portfolio success. Those trade portfolio success is because of poor insights, poor current strategy, poor current trade volume, and taking decision between imbalances and balances. So I strongly recommend people who are all getting into trade related business, people into the business must adhere to the principles of trade volumes and balances as per the standard portfolio measure. And that standard portfolio measure is most important study. What we talk about standard portfolio measure is the most important question asked in lot of question papers. So this is nothing but an SPM, and this SPM is mostly connected to the people who are all highlightable towards mapping the data into the real-time scenario. So those real-time scenario has to be taken into consideration for effective export and import policy. So this export import policy, what we call it like EXIM, has to be taken into consideration. So how standard portfolio measure, that is SPM versus this particular exam is going to be. So this is going to be a critical question asked in a lot of question papers, which is mostly related to foreign trade. As of PG scholars is concerned, specific commodity versus standard portfolio measure with respect to the trade, with respect to portfolio check and other commodities. Please be aware that these are all the recent performance index. So as of scholars is concerned, performance index of last 3 years must be a mandatory default information must be known across different divisions. And slightly coming to next most important division, that is Incoterms ranking, that is international commercial terms. So when I talk on international commercial terms, it is also making me some options and some connections. Those connections which are all highlighted to the maximum divisions which are all to be noted down in most preferential capability. And those most preferential capability is also to note down the risk associations across buyers and sellers. I repeat, the risk associations across buyers and sellers is not artificially created. It is naturally prevailing in most of the institutions and most of the preferential capability. And those most preferential capability is because of poor planning in delivery of goods. So when they talk about the poor planning of delivery of goods, it is not planned well priorly, but it could be predetermined as of this matter is concerned. We may plan a secondary element getting into the segmental zone. And those segmental zone which are all highlighted in the delivery of goods and sellers, it is clearly defining the cost and risk associated or transported and delivered across competitive buyers and sellers. Those competitive buyers and sellers are delivering their related relevant goods clearly to the responsible people who are all connected to the chain. I repeat, the chain connected people across divisions of international and domestic terminals can clearly state commercial terms are only for defining the leftover responsibility, whereas non-commercial terms in the supply chain will never include any risk association. So these risk associations, what we discuss in the statement of inspection, is always related to number of protocols and number of associated elements, which are all purely connected to the people who are all maximum into the zone of business communication. So those business communication, what we discuss in the poor management control is also to be noted down with the maximum patterns of study and also enhancing the capability to the real-time scenario. So those real-time scenario is also to be highlighted in order to ensure the correctness pattern is also revealing with the method of inspection. And those method of inspection is also well treated for people related to the organic or inorganic competition. So the term organic competition is non-reluctant to inspectional default capability, whereas the inorganic competition, what we term it in management, is nothing but which is purely corrupted, purely inqualitative, purely non-relevant to the pattern of study. So there might be some poor business of selection. So when I talk about the framework of incentives and match descriptions, people in the survey related aspects might be taking a point of control. That point of control might not be the scenario for a lot of people. So there are some indisturbances and imbalances when there is no mismatch of cargoes and mismatch of other criterion. But people in this particular matter of concern must take some relevant measures for avoiding the errors in inspection and avoiding the errors in shipment and classifications of these many criteria. So when I calculate the elements success rate, it is damn easy for me to take a viewpoint on safety standards. And those safety standards are not easy for me to acquire selected data is correct or not. How to verify it? What is the standard I do have? If I don't have a proper standard, I may not get a proper scenario for acquiring the data into the related export import activity. And those related export import activity is wholesome related to the paperwork rather than proper work. So I need a proper work to be consolidated for especially grouping activities across distinction. And exporting importing is generally focusing only on operational flow, not on document flow, not on filing, not on requisition rate. It is an acquisition rate. So I need to acquire more than requesting more. So the shipment practices, the document evidences are all connected to ensure the right match for right option. So I repeat it, a right match for right option is not one day's task. It is repeating again and again. N number of compliances are acquired, n number of shipment are taken, n number of acceptances and n number of ignorances are happening, daily routine sheets. So there is no called quality control happening in a stringent way based on the necessity and demand. We are accepting and ignoring the shipment based on the capacity planning. We are inspecting and ensuring the acceptances based on the time study. We are matching the cargo document evidences with respect to standards. So please try to understand maximum number of survey and maximum number of query or related to these many detail which is highlighted to the maximum of understanding of international foreign trade. So now getting into the secondary query. So international foreign trade policy of India primarily aim to regulate whether the retail price or interest rate or process of representing the international body or incentive and regulational plan. So which option could be the optimum option? So I'm not asking about the right option, all are right exclusively. Which option becomes the optimum option for primary aim? So since my question talks only on primary criterion, might be the other option might be the secondary and tertiary criterion. What could be the primary option of international foreign trade policy? Options in chat box. What is your option? Fine. It talks about D. There is incentives and regulations for increasing exports and managing imports. Fine. So the aim is to regulate. So we are focusing on regulations. So simple. When I talk about regulating other things, thanks for the answer. When I talk about the regulating of electoral process or it talks about the regulating of interest rates, it becomes a dynamic statement. So my query is, statically speaking, what could be the first options of making the real? So my first option is incentive plan, regulational plan. What could be the perks given to the consultant or the middleman who is going to regulate the international foreign trade? So incentives in the sense I can talk about allowances, perks, all the people related concepts can be included here. So this perks can be the examples for incentives and regulations for increasing exports, managing the imports policies. So this could be the statement given to a lot of people when you try to please highlight with the illustrations, which is to be noted down by the maximum number of people who are all well connected to the risk and responsibility. So this is going to be the bridge of risk and responsibility where I'm going to hang based on buyer's risk and seller risk. So this buyer's risk and seller's risk are two sides of a coin. We may not include or we may not exclude any kind of categorization. This buyer's risk and seller's risk are going to be the futuristic version, and this is going to be the important frame for you people to understand whether it is dictating the so when I try to classify the details which are all connected to the Incoterms bridge, but when it is coming the seller's facility, it is damn easy for me to take a criterion and make a right understanding across divisions. So the right Incoterms port of destination starts from seller facility, whether it is reachable or not reachable, whether it is transferable or non-transferable, whether it is compliance related or non-compliance related. So these are all the things and debates to be done between a seller and buyer, and then only it is reaching the destination, stating that we are crossing so many borders. I make it strong. We are crossing so many borders in a particular straight line transportation. So this is statistically proven that we have exponential smoothing. In our basic Excel, we have a tool called solver. In that solver, we may solve ABC analysis. We may solve assignment and transportation problems. What we do it for 3 or 4 pages in our quantitative or operational research paper can be done within 2 minutes using solver tool that is becoming an add-on in our basic Excel. And that Excel solver tool must be known across all the PhD scholars because it is going to be the most important tool what we are going to learn it are basically analyzing the entire basic port of origin, shipment trail, all the consideration has to be analytically solved using solver. And this solver tool is there in our Excel as an add-on. So this add-on has to be downloaded, and based on the downloading add-on, you can make basic exercises what you have done for more than 20 to 25 minutes for 13 marks or 15 marks problem can be done in 2 minutes to solve a problem. So this solver is basically engaging all the real-time problems to get a real-time solution, and that solution can be 99% adaptable and compatible with our real-time executed risk and compliances also. So it is not only dictating, it is also directing us to ensure the smooth solution for the smooth problem. So the responsibilities are also transferred from the exporter to the importer, not only the amount or not only the goods, it is also added with the liability. That is the most important thing in which we need to understand the concepts. Now we are getting into the categorizations of procedures. That is, in terms of procedure, what are all the export and import activities can be done. So basically speaking, this import and export practices, I need to document all the philosophies of paperwork done, which is being fabricated already, and for which we are doing the works now. That is what maximum companies are doing today. There is nothing to be hidden in this. Already we are fabricating a work which is to be done in the next cycle, for which we are doing the exact work in the upcoming cycle, whereas the paperwork has been done in the previous cycle. So this export import procedure is not an exception in it. It is also being done in an operational way, but in which we are going to promise some things which is going to be in the cycle number two, for which say like odd cycles and even cycles. Now we are in the even semester, even cycle. So in the even cycle, what are all the practices to be included fresh has to be given a tagline in odd cycle stating that this odd cycle introduces operational success rate A, operational success rate B, etc., C, D, and so on. So, in which success rate can be adaptable and which success rate can be ignorable. These things has to be done and enabled with the basic tools of understanding and analyzing. So we need to understand, apply, evaluate, create all things to be done in a knowledge level practices, and then we are suggested with the distinctional practice, stating that this can be done or this cannot be done. So we are getting an expert opinion from 1 or 3 members or 5 members, stating like odd number of opinions are considered, out of which is maximum taken into standard. So this is what we are doing since we are into the component of corporate portfolio analysis, and people from corporate might also accept sitting together and understanding the philosophy from our TL with the help of latest updations. And once after doing all these things, what could be served or what could be demonstrated for a people who are all connected to the regulatory environment is not damn easy for us to make trade related activities and describe. So these kind of descriptions the impact scenario for all the individuals who are all into the regulatory environments. In some time, I may have a poor direction toward governance. In some area, I may have a strong governance, strong direction, and not all the times I may fail due course of understanding. So those due course of understanding might not be the situational setup or the situational wholesome action for making the paper proper international work of consideration. This paper and proper work of international consideration focus on essential business function, resources analysis, labor force, offer categorization, creates value proposition, all etc. All coming into a common and making a very good utilization of resources. And finally, we talk about maintaining a balance between 4V. What does that 4V talk about? Volume, variety, visibility, and variation. So I repeat, volume. Talking into volume first, how much volume the business is going to take it into control. So when I talk about volume, it talks on 4V. First 4V is all about volume. So make sure that this volume is going to be of bulk volume of production. And what are all the varieties I may provide? Varieties of products which are all trade related and non-trade related. So once after volume and variety, what kind of variations I may provide? If I give you a common variation, if I make all the individuals to go for it, as like Tata Nano, so there is no grade variance. If I have a same variant to all the people, even a and one of the middle class family can also adhere to the pattern of nano so that everyone can afford it without having a bias or without having a discrimination of various grades. There is a basic variant, there is a middle variant, there is a top variant. Even in a single locomotive, we may have right from 10 lakhs to 20 lakhs of differentiation. So that is going to be the variation. If I show this bias in my sales and policy procedures, it may create a bias and customer preferences also. So this variation is going to be the third V, and based on the volume, kind of visible changes I may provide, as like how the visible changes can be described as of trade related activities concerned. If a locomotive is giving a comeback, if an automobile is giving a comeback, what could be the affordable rate of taking that comeback into the real time scenario? That visibility rate is mostly important. This visibility, what we provide, is not in today's computational regulatory environment. Those computational regulatory environment is not suitably connected to the maximum environmental requirements of trade and trade related activities. So when I focus really on these kind of regulatory practices, as like 4B, 3P, that is people, process, purpose, we have environmental organizational management system, EOMS. So all environmental related activities, management related activities can be taken into the consideration for manipulating the details and making the strong understanding of EOMS practices. So those UOMS practices can also be visibly, variatedly, varietily, volume related activities can be taken for a trade related activity to get a promise. So what you can do is from your segment, you can act accordingly as an agent or a middleman to understand the business first of all. Then after 5 years, you may start your own venture. You may practice it, you may allocate it, you may describe it from your perception. And after 5 years, you may provide a business opportunity like franchising or other help out of reach out of activities, which is from your own end. Then by end of 15th or 16th year, you may get a recognition in the platform of global market. So this is how we grow in a regulated environment and international foreign trade activities and policy making procedures and high standard guidances. So these are all the segments and activities, notable capable functionalities. And those capable functionalities are also talking on CPR, that is capacity planning requirement. So the CPR is also going to be the root cause for manipulating the details of capacity planning and requirements, which is to be done in the international market. How well the production, how well the activities and financial allocated resources, and what are all the well-being. So in all the well-being, we need to take some iterational study. We need to do some survey. We need to do some trial and error methods. And then only we may identify this could be the procedure. So the procedural requirement includes CPR and then TPR, that is trade planning and requirements. So we need to understand the capacity planning requirements versus trade planning requirements. We need to include TPR also. So trade planning requirements. And after executing the trade planning and capacity planning requirements, we need to follow the guidelines. And based on the guidelines, we are into the, as we discuss about ESG framework, that is environmental, social, and governance practices, which is giving us a direction, which is giving us a composition. And then we are making a foreign trade analysis in the open platform. And then we are making the overarching regulatory, which is a highly stringently making us to crush in a competitive business environment. So once after doing all these things, I may get a reluctant environment in order to execute into the schematic scenario. And that schematic scenario might not be the situational in all the segment of behavior. And there could be some poor stringent activities which may not be that much practicable or which may not be that much satisfactory in order to be a poor functionality of elements. And those functionality of elements might not take into a real-time zone of making it to the actional plan of understanding. So let me show you a basic mind map of how it is reacting towards business environment. So this business environment not only focus on highlightable capability, but also on the differential practices. And those differential practices executed in a real-time scenario is highlightable and mostly preferred in a distinct analysis. So that distinct analysis will be displayed to you. So this the mind map and this notebook LM, what we discussed in the first session, must be taken with the utmost priority for your examination preparation. And that could be the most important scenario for highlighting a lot of individuals who are all connected to this particular pattern of consideration. So let me show the most important pattern of consideration in the notebook LM access to. So those notebook LM access, what we have it in today's concept. Hope so everyone is seeing the screen. This notebook LM concept where we discuss about international marketing is mostly into the reports where we can highlight the mind map and where we can generate how the mind map and generated report are highly helpful in these four platforms. So I repeat, these are all the basic platforms where we can highlight the maximum number of briefing categorization and maximum number of strategic frameworks, operational guide, references, concept primer, blog post, study guide, all eight are giving you the satisfactory report of making a compatible and reliable tool. It is being suggested by a lot of technicians and research scholars across different divisions. You cannot totally rely on this. I don't suggest people to totally rely on this. You can rely up to 30%. So I can suggest you that the options which are all given from Notebook LM is exclusively from the reference books what you are referring in today's ebook concept. Though majority of ebooks references has been tied up in this Notebook LM. So as of our references is concerned, majority of ebook references and ebook subscriptions are connected to this Notebook LM. So maximum content what we are generated in other AI tool is 10 times and 20 times more accurate than this Notebook LM. So notebook LM contents are more reliable and where we are briefing the representative elements, and especially in mind maps like these kind of consideration, what we can make it out is maximum number of distributional, product related, pricing related, entry strategy, trade policy, and recent trends. Since we talk about the recent trends here, we may categorize what could be the recent trends, what could be the essential trends, how the essential trends can be implemented, and who are all the essential criterion. So, as of this essential trends is concerned, we may offer some business map, business portfolio, business checks, and business consideration with respect to the elements of manipulating the required data. I strongly recommend the recent trend which are all increasing in today's competition is not just a philosophy, it is the overall consideration of differential elements. So I strongly recommend people who are all well connected to this platform must take some relevant action on recent trends of these four areas. Coming to documentation, when I focus on regionalism and multilateralism, it was talking on global logistics. So when I focus on international commercial terms, when I get into shipment, document evidences, agreement, trade related requirement query, World Trade Organization related queries, distributional logistics, all put together, we are in a situation to take some utmost care on these segmental area. And once after doing all these things, what could be the maximum survey we may avail, or we may go through, or we may categorize this basically on understanding it from the infograph. So, what could be the basic infograph we may generate legal dimensional, ethical dimensional, or exercisable goods? Everything can be taken into the real time survey of trying to generate some basic infographics. And those infographics are just connected with your basic objective. What are all the basic objectives you are giving? So, how the pricing strategy are varying with respect to a product line, and who are all the deciders in order to ensure the certificate, whether it is required or not, whether it is selected or not, whether it is strategically connected or not. These things has to be navigated. And once after navigating all these things, what could be the most important segment of evaluating it from the standardization? Let me highlight it. Evaluating with this, that is standardization versus adaptation. So when I try to evaluate the standardization versus adaptation, this is mostly highlightable in understanding the proceedings and consequences. So people maximum in today's competition or scholarly analyze the articles, analyze the segments, try to connect with the real-time scenario, refer the books. All these things are done in the particular platform and it is giving you as a tablet. Just if you take the tablet, if you consume it, you may get a relief that this particular topic has been understood from international perspective. So we are standardizing from the product verification. We are standardizing from the overall, terminal verification or operational verification. So we are managing the required international trade across divisions, across categorizations, which is a lot of requirements are there. Coming to foreign trade navigation and getting into new product line or emerging international markets, all are connected to a common case problem. So we are giving you a scenario, and for that scenario, there is a focus, and for that focus, we are discussing a question. So all put together, it is compiled in a segmental scenarios. So you need not worry about the scenarios. All the scenarios are relevant scenarios which is accepted across business platforms. And those scenarios has to be given maximum priority. So with respect to infographics, what we have generated, it is going to give you a category of how it is guiding across standardization and other operations, whether it is properly with the learning objective or not. What could be the overall global matrix or global myths with respect to the overall strategy, which was entry level and business level. So all the entry level and exit level distributional management are across divisions or not. Then only we may take a consideration stating that strategic alliances are accepted. There are diversity. There are entry level modes. There is some mastering level of understanding. There is preliminary level of understanding. There is a localized need or globalized need. So all these categorization, what we discuss in today's platform is highly understood from agent, contractors, licenses, market intermediary or optimizer who is being the regulatory body. So anyone can be the SPOC. So there might be a single point of contact which is changing then by there in order to enhance the global market is not only for one fellow. Where we can have the global market understanding and agency can be taken by anyone whose competency level is more. So by understanding the competency level, by mastering in all the terms and techniques, we may have strong WTO networks, and based on that, we may increase our compliance rate. If there is increased compliance rate, there is a chances of new product development. And if there is a new product development, we may have a new contractors. If I have a new contractor, if I have furthermore networks, I may have a strong market diversification. So these are all the things in which I can show maximum diversification is possible across divisions. So just by including your uploading your data connected in the resources, we may have these many data which is highlighted and which is connected to a common platform. So let me go with the study guide. So these are all the study guide policies which is generated from the source what we are giving. So there is nothing called prompting here. There is no prompting here. There is the open, reliable, visible, transparent environment which is creating you a list of study guide materials. And those study guide are connecting with the knowledge level, that is remembering, understanding, applying, evaluating, analyzing, and creating all the knowledge levels, right from K1 to K6. It is connected as an examination point of view. And once after connecting it from the industrial, I mean, inputted source, this inputted source is giving you a categorization as like this. So these are all the standardizations of those networks. And based on the networks, we are getting a proper understanding how the scenario varies. So by taking any understanding from the scenario, this particular understanding, what we are going to take it from these kind of questions. There is a possible questions which is being taken from our own end without a dependent factor. So when you refer your materials, you may get an idea. When you refer a question bank, you may get a scenario. When you refer a scenario, you may get a strong foundation of standard metric. So finally, you should end up in metric. So that metric is not defined by any reference books or any teacher or any individual peer group references. It is done only with the help of assessing ourselves. So when you try to assess yourself, it is damn easy for you to evolve in a regulatory policy frameworks and to distribute yourself in strategic way. And slowly you can highlight the factor which are all selected from a random channel to a specific channel, and you can easily implement your ideation, and innovatively you can do some research across divisions, and which is guiding you to the maximum of pricing level and international levels of markets. So this is how we assess ourselves. So once after understanding the scenarios given in the module 4 and 5, you may get a clarity of new product development, how we are going to end up in NPD with the help of international markets, international logistics, and fastness in supply chain, smoother, that is exponential smoothing factor, or the smoothness in supply chain is applicable only with the help of proper work, not with the help of paperwork. So paperwork is not at all taken into consideration in today's market, and proper work can be analyzed from the various channels, various segments, and various platforms. So these are all to be handled with utmost care for avoiding flaw in the nearby future. So this is what I would like to discuss with you all. So with this, we'll close for today. Any doubts related to the session, you can unmute yourself and you can ask your query or post it in chat box. So with this, we are wrapping fourth module, and in the next session, we'll be discussing about the fifth module, how WTO and trade-related inventory measures are being done, and how it is going to enhance in the global competition. Any doubts related to the current discussion, you may ask for open forum. Any doubts? Is there any clarifications? Fine, thank you. So let me share the session's PPT also with you as like Google slide. Kindly preserve and bookmark all the PPT for your references, which will be helpful for your preparation. Fine, thank you.